Okay, great to see you, Gavin. How are you today?
I'm well, mate. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm very well, and yeah, it's obviously we've known each other for a little while, so it was a good opportunity to grab some time and just yeah, I mean, as we spoke before, it's about trying to share stories across the ditch of yeah what's happening in Australia and New Zealand. And Gavin, if you don't mind, just give us a bit of an introduction on yourself and yeah, what your role is within Placemakers.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Joe. So, yeah, once again, thanks for your time. So, my name's Gavin, as you just alluded to. My role currently is with Placemakers, which is the top leading merchant in the country over here. We're actually a division of Fletcher Building, which some of your listeners may be familiar with over in Australia as well. But quite a big business on this side of the ditch for sure. But we sort of come under the New Zealand distribution banner, which sits with Myco and some other distribution type companies. My role in the business is national sales operations manager. So sort of looking at how do we give our salespeople the easiest pathway to sell something so they have a better day, really, and then all of the things that sort of sit under that in terms of tools, processes, information at their fingertips so that they can offer the best level of service in the industry. That's sort of what we're about. Yeah.
And what size team have you got over there, Gav? I've heard some pretty big numbers.
Yeah. So as I said, it's pretty. Placemakers just on its own is a pretty big merchant. So we have over 70 branches and manufacturing plants across the country. In terms of the sales team, we have close to 240 people across the country, which includes all of our sales reps, account managers, trade sales managers, and also more senior sales leaders across the country as well as sort of at where I'm at in national office across the board. So lot of fingers and a lot of feet around trying to make it happen on the ground, mate.
Look, I have led sales teams, but nowhere near the size of that. So I'm sure it definitely would be a very fast-moving piece of machinery to be able to lead that sort of team around. How long have you been in this role for?
So I'll be in this role 3 years come September, and it's been a real fast-paced 3 years. I actually started straight after COVID, so you can imagine. Yeah, it was an interesting time, and just on the back of a new GM or sales coming into the business. So there's a lot of change at the time, bit of uncertainty, as you can imagine, after COVID. But we were pretty clear on one thing: is that we needed the right strategy, the right team to head up coming out of difficult times. So if I look back now, where we are at today, it's been a real pleasure and really exciting to see that we've sort of laid a good foundation to be able to serve our customers.
And what was your background before that, Gav?
Well, actually, I was still in Placemakers 3 years before that role. So I was actually a sales manager myself of two branches here in the Bay of Plenty in Mount Maunganui and Whakatane. So I had sort of 12 sales reps and account managers under me. So prior to that, I had never worked for a building merchant before, so it was a bit of a sort of feet in first, and we certainly didn't have a lot of the tools we had today for sales managers. So, but it was a great challenge. I got to learn a lot more about the industry. So yeah, I was 3 years as a sales manager there. Prior to that, I actually had my own building company. As a partnership where we were involved in the Christchurch rebuild from the earthquakes down there, which
Oh
some of
wow,
you guys might remember.
yeah.
We actually just had the 13-year anniversary yesterday of that earthquake. So time goes really fast for sure. But yeah, that was a big learning curve. So yeah, was in that business for quite a while, and in that business, my roles were more to do with business performance, kind of the same type of thing, building process, making sure we had all the right online tools to be able to do assessments real quick for earthquake from the earthquake recovery response and the likes. And we had a team of sort of 40 people in our company at the time, ranging from managing complete rebuilds right down to small earthquake repairs across the Canterbury region.
Yeah, well, that certainly gives you a lot of experience right through that whole building process. So I mean, I'm sure, like most of us, I mean, we learn something new every day. So, being part of Placemakers must be, a very interesting role to have. So, what's the culture at Placemakers like?
It's a great question, Jason. Actually, it's one of a story that's kind of evolved. If I think about when I started 5, 6 years ago, certainly some good people, like a lot of good buggers, as we would say over here. But you know, the culture was particularly in the sales team, and you know what it's like in sales teams. You deal with a lot of characters and different egos, and there's a great competitive spirit, which is great. But
Oh, there'd be no
sometimes,
egos, mate. Must be just New Zealand, I think.
yeah, as a sales manager, you're standing back looking at your team, going, "Wow, this is diverse." So sometimes it's great, and at the time, I think some of the weaknesses of that was that it was driving a bit of a culture between them and us mentality. So kind of where I think about where we're at now, being more in a corporate office environment, trying to bridge that gap. I think culture comes from the top, or leading culture comes from the top, and certainly what we're trying to do as a leadership team with our sales leaders is that it's leader led. Um, we can't expect our people to change if we're not changing ourselves or we're not in a good headspace. So I think since we've adopted that way of thinking, I'm happy and pleased to say, hand on heart, that we actually not only do have good buggers, that everyone's got each other's back, which has actually created a really nice culture in the business.
That's
So
excellent.
it's a
And
great place to work.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, and the importance of building a high performance sales team is something you and I have spoken about, and
Mm,
to get that culture of wanting to grow the business is obviously, for a lot of businesses it's very difficult because, as you know, I mean, we're all different as far as how we're motivated and traditionally how we sell as well. So what I'm seeing is definitely a big change in companies at the moment where it's like, as you said, we've been through COVID and our industry boomed. It was more about
mm,
counselling people as to why they couldn't get their orders on time or why we couldn't accept their orders. So now
yeah.
it's, in some cases as well, there was a lot of uncomfortable conversations by salespeople going on, I know what it's like because when I worked with Hine, I mean, timber in Australia, I mean, we always had to, when the market tightened, everyone went back onto like an allocation sort of system. It's like, okay, well, you've supported the business, for a long time, and now you're in the list. You're on the list. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, companies that didn't sort of, purchase regularly or support the business
That's right.
were sort of left out on a bit of a wing. So
Yeah.
you could sort of, the changes in dynamics for salespeople was huge. How did your team sort of handle
Oh,
that period? It must have been tough.
it was tough, mate. Gosh, I remember it well. I actually started the sales ops role just as we were coming into supply issues. The first thing off the rack was we could not get jibboard. We could not get plasterboard, and we actually own Jib. Jib and Winstone Wallboards is a company of Fletcher Building, so you can imagine what was going around in the media at the time. And so, that just exacerbated by the fact that things like insulation, we also own paint bats as a Fletcher Building company, and we couldn't even get bats ourselves,
Yeah, wow,
insulation
that's
bats.
tough, isn't it?
Yeah, so, mate, I could talk for hours about it, but basically, we had the same struggles as everyone else. We had to do exactly the same thing, and I was actually seconded to build some of those allocation models based on historic data and all of the sort of data that kind of said to us who's important and not important, and you're kind of sitting back as a sort of both a data person and then someone who knows the families of some of these builders who we're trying to say no to because
Absolutely, yeah.
they don't spend as much with us. So who are we going to prioritise?
Mm.
It's a very tricky situation. And whilst we navigated through it the best we could, our salespeople were really stressed, man. Like they had to
Mm.
have those conversations that you were talking about before, really tough conversations where we had builders not being able to get to milestones and pay their bills because they didn't have the product to be able to get
Yeah.
to that point. And quite often, we were the outlet. Our salespeople were the outlet. Where's my stuff? I don't care what your excuse is. I need it now. and these guys, our salespeople, going home at night stressed out of their brains, and you
Well, they're probably locking the door, mate, because they're worried about it. I mean, it's
locking the door and throwing the phone out.
yeah. Oh, I
So
mean, I
yeah,
remember myself.
it's a
I
tough one.
mean, yeah, back in it's sort of, and yeah, from a salesperson's mindset, and a lot of work we do is with mindset, and I suppose now trying to turn the sales guys back around. It's like, hey, you need to go and have conversations again with some of these people. What do you sort of see as far as the opportunities at the moment in the marketplace for your team?
It's a really great question, and when I look at to answer that question, when I look at the cycle of what happened after supply issues, one of the reasons we had supply issues is because demand went through the roof as well. So it was just exacerbated by the fact that we couldn't kickstart factories after shutdowns from COVID. So you could pretty much sell anything you wanted for whatever price. So it was the way, how do you influence a customer to buy from you now? And that influence completely was turned on its head from you influenced me by having it, and
Yeah,
now you influence me by the right price. Um, where that evolution has taken over for us a little bit, and we've had to drive that, it is actually how do we balance price out to value proposition? Because whilst we have competitors who will, for lack of a better term, maybe buy the work, that's not our intent. We've always been straight up and go, no, we're not. We're not going to drive the market into the ground. What we will do is we'll support you to grow your business so that you can see the value proposition in what we're trying to give you in terms of service. And once those two things start to kind of align, we find that starts creating loyalty with the customers that we want to work with and that they want to work
yeah.
with us as well. So I think that's probably a good way to explain kind of where we see things at the moment, and we're continuing to drive that thought process both in the training and the outputs of our sales team.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And so, what about from a tech? So, you're talking about investing in your salespeople, which is fantastic.
Mm.
Because some of the conversations I have every day is that our industry really hasn't invested in sales development and sales people. I mean, it's quite. And I know when I was in a leadership role, it's someone would pop up and you'd send they'd go to a course on a particular topic, but it's sort of proofs in the pudding that unless the training is entrenched into some sort of technology or some system that they're going to use again after that day of training, about 90% of it's actually lost. And I think that's the importance of having the sales technology and actually incorporating sales systems and processes into that so that, the sales people can actually see a pathway and a journey on, okay, I've got someone here I want to work with, and how do I then bring them into an opportunity and a process that actually helps them sort of move through. And I always sort of say it's like when you're a kid and you used to go 10-pin bowling, you could put the barriers up on the side so the
Yeah.
ball didn't hit the gutter.
Mm.
And in theory, with sales, it's actually quite similar because, I mean, a lot of salespeople will sort of jump from, hello, I want the order. You know what I mean? Where it's no, well, there's more steps and milestones you need to do, obviously, to keep the ball sort of going down the alley to strike out. Because I mean, a lot of, as you know, the bowling ball goes down the into the gutter. It's pretty well all over. So what have you guys been doing with your technology recently?
Yeah, great question, mate. Again, I could this is really an exciting wheelhouse for me. It's the entire reason my role in the sales enablement role actually exists in the company. But I'll answer your question directly in terms of the technology. We've certainly had a journey. After COVID, we probably made a few mistakes, to be honest. One of them was we invested heavily in, during COVID, we actually operated to a certain degree, but it had to be in an environment where it was contactless, which you would remember from those days. So we actually advanced all of our digital tools and put them in the hand of our customers. Here's a Placemakers trade app where you can go go into your account, you can order material, have it like a click and collect sort of scenario, just like you get your groceries, and you park there, we'll load it on. There's a barcode that gets signed off, and then on your way. It's great. But it didn't really help our salespeople because they weren't on the ground at the time. So when everyone came back to work, we had all these great tools for our customers, and our salespeople were still scratching their head trying to find information and data and pulling information from different disparate systems. So one of the things we did is go, okay, well, whilst that was a need, we need to turn this on its head. How do we put the right tech in the hands of our salespeople so they have the right information at the right time? They have a one-stop shop place to see exactly what their customers' behaviours are and their buying behaviours to be able to then pinpoint the right conversations from an agenda point of view. So we went through an evolution of creating dashboards in live environments with the likes of Click and some other Power BI type stuff. We went down an automation route through the Microsoft suite, and we eventually ended up at a CRM place where actually let's take all of that stuff, put it into a CRM, so that not only do we have we given our salespeople the information they need, but we've also given them the ability to be able to act on that and follow that up.
Yeah.
And so we're sort of in a journey there now, which I've talked to you about a little bit. We're rolling that all into one place. And of course, what comes with that as well, we had to get the right devices out. So there's all these things that sort of had to align.
Yeah.
It's one thing having the technology, but if you can't actually use it on the fly, it doesn't really work. So
Absolutely.
that's sort of where we're at, and there's continuing evolution in that. But as part of our aspiration to develop the single best team in the industry, we've got to give them the tools. We've got to get the right
Look, I like that, and I think congratulations for doing what you're doing, because I think a lot of people sort of, when you say CRM, they get a bit scared, but it's not. A CRM is a small part of the whole package, you know what I mean? And we work on sales enablement as well, because what you want to do, you don't want it to just be like a data library. You want it to be a tool that the salespeople actually love using. And what I always do is, when I'm working with a client, is to say to the salespeople, okay, what are the barriers holding you back? They're like, oh, it takes too much time. I can't do the reporting. Okay, well, what if it was a mobile app? What if it's got, voice to text? You don't have to type. There's a lot of different, and you think about it too. I mean, a lot of emails we write, you think you got 220 salespeople, and everyone's writing different emails and sending different messages and spending so much time with that inputs. Well, how about we have the templates that are written the way we want to speak to our clients, and in the format that you can just press a button and it sends it, and you can look at all the analytics of who's opening and who's clicking and who's interested. So, yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, and now you've obviously got AI as well. So, I mean, there's certainly a lot going on, but yeah, I think it's really impressive that you're investing that time in giving the team the best tools and to do their job, because we want to make it easier for salespeople, not more difficult.
Yeah, that's the goal, mate. And it's just critical that we go down this path. And like we said, there's always, nothing's ever perfect. We're always straight up about that. But I think one thing that's been really positive is that we've actually included the sales team in the development of this. We haven't sat back and actually said, right, we think it should be this way, and so this is how you're going to use it.
Yeah.
The pilots and the key guys on the coalface, riding shoulder to shoulder, are the ones who've actually developed this tool. So
That's awesome.
Actually look at the roadblocks, and we can try and solve that for them. So it's been a very exciting journey, mate.
Well, it's worth the time, and I think that's the thing. A lot of business leaders are juggling so many hats, but sometimes, just sitting back and going, no, the more we do on this now, it's going to create so much more benefits of effectiveness and time management, and not only that too, but I mean, as you know, as a sales manager as well, you want to be if you're going to be able to coach your team, well, it's got to be within a platform that you can actually help them coach. Because there's no use getting a report at the end of the month and then going, well, what happened? It's like, no, this is live. It's in application.
Yeah, and I think it kind of just rolls into one of the sayings we use is winning through disruption. How do we get the right processes and tools through a disruptive period like COVID or the market being back like it is right now, how do we take the mindset and go, let's not throw up our hands. Let's actually look at how we win through that. And if we can do that through some of the tech that we're doing, or rolling out and implementing, getting good adoption, going shoulder to shoulder with the guys, then we know we're going to be in a good position when the tables turn. So that's
No, that's excellent. So just in a quick summary, what's your opinion on the New Zealand market leading through to Christmas? What do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something we keep an eye on very closely, as you can imagine. Rather than going back in time and explaining what's happened, because to be honest, anyone on this side of the Tasman knows that the market's pretty bad. We think about interest rates and we think about the Reserve Bank tightening up LVR ratios and what that means for our customers. It's certainly had a real cooling effect on the market. What we do know is that, when I say what we do know, we don't really know what's going to happen, but what we are predicting will happen is that season will start to turn. And we've already seen that with an increase in inquiries with our major volume builders across the country. The realisation of those inquiries by the time they actually get a spade in the ground is another thing. So we do think that whilst we know that the market's back anywhere between 8 to 12% over here, obviously Auckland is sort of the bigger driver of that across the country with just the weighted amount of population there. We are seeing pockets starting to turn a little bit. So, those inquiries, as we talk to builders on the ground, they're starting to get a little bit more confidence. We know that interest rates are probably going to be halting for a while, potentially coming down after the financial year in July, which we think is going to stimulate more activity in the market. But it's still a wait and see. What we do know is, like I said before, we try and position ourselves the best place we can, and then capitalise on that when that happens. But before Christmas, we certainly hope to see things come back by at least half of that. So if the market's only back 5% by this time on Christmas year on year, I think that would be a positive place to be.
It must be tricky though too, because it's the same here in Australia at the moment. I mean, a lot of the pricing is starting to level back out. I mean, some of the products went up so much. So, yeah, not only have we got less inquiries, but it's also the selling value is less as well. So,
a lot of different drivers, as you say, and certainly that windfall from COVID, where prices changed so much, to leveling out, and that's why I mentioned earlier, we need to be thinking about value proposition when it comes to selling, because commodities and the likes, our sell prices, not something we can influence too much, so we need to be smart about how we sell.
Absolutely. All right, Gavin, look, I do really appreciate your time today. It's been great to catch up with you, and no doubt we'll keep in contact and see how the year unfolds for you.
No, thank you, Jason. Great chat, and as always, good to have a chat and get your insight too. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it.